Chapter 9. Pooley and O'Malley sat at a secluded corner table in the Flying Swan. "I can't understand the Professor," said Jim. Didn't seem to be himself at all. O'Malley shook his head. "I don't know," he replied. "Appeared to me a clear case of keep the golfers guessing. I suspect he knows a good deal more than he's letting on to. Not much ever gets by him. He certainly made short work of the cabbage leaf." O'Malley leant back in his seat and cast his arms wide. "But where are we?" he asked. "Nowhere at all. We have councilmen doing the impossible at every opportunity. We have runic ideograms appearing magically upon the ground, and camels working their way through the season's produce. I don't like any of it. It smacks to me of some great conspiracy to confound honest golfers and put them off their game." "I suspect that it goes a little deeper than that," said Jim, "but I agree that it does nothing to enhance the play. Perhaps we should quit the allotment now. Move on to pastures new. There are several large bomb sites down near the docks, surrounded by high walls. I know of a secret entrance or two." "Never," said O'Malley boldly. "I've had enough of running. If we do not make our stand now, the bastards will eventually drive us into the sea, and I care little for the prospect of underwater golf." "Corkballs," said Pooley. "I beg your pardon." "Doop, doop, 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 whip, whip." "What?" Nicholas Roger Raffles Rathbone turned a full circle upon his heel and drove his reddening fists down on the console of the Captain Laser alien attack machine. "You bastard," he said earnestly. "You bloody sneaked an extra saucer in there." He turned towards the bar where Neville stood, his ears protected by cotton wool balls, and his hands feverishly at work with the polishing cloth. "Have you altered this machine?" he cried. "Get stuffed," said Neville. "I know the sequences," Nick continued, unabashed. 30 shots, then a big saucer, 38, then a mothership. Somebody has tampered with this machine." Neville laid down his polishing cloth, plucked the ineffective cotton plugs from his ears, and glowered across the bar. "No one has touched it," he said, his words forming between two rows of teeth which were showing some signs of wear. "No one has touched, tampered, or tinkered with it. No official brewery representative has ever called to service it. No engineers came to polish its paintwork, change its bulbs, or fondle its inner workings. Not even to empty of the king's ransom it must by now contain. It seemingly never breaks down, nor needs any maintenance. It runs from its own power supply, and is a law unto itself. If you have any complaints, I suggest you address them directly to the machine. With any luck, it will take exception to your manner and electrocute you." "Someone's been tampering," said Nick, delving into his pockets for more 2-bob bits. "I know the sequences." The part-time barman turned away in disgust. "Jim," he said, beckoning across the counter towards Pooley, "I might have a word or two in your ear." Pooley hastened from his chair, favouring the possibility of a free drink. "Your servant, Barlord," said he. "Jim," said Neville, gesturing towards the hunched back of the green-haired youth. "Jim, has O'Malley come up with anything yet regarding this abomination? I'm at my wit's end. My letter of resignation is folded into the envelope, and the stamp is on." Jim chewed upon his lip. It was obvious that Neville was speaking with great sincerity. It would be a tragedy indeed if Brentford lost the best part-time barman it ever had, especially over so trivial a thing as a computer games machine. "In truth," lied Jim with great conviction, "O'Malley and I have spent the entirety of the afternoon discussing this very matter. We were doing so even when you called me across. We are, I think, nearing a solution." "Oh," said Neville, brightening. "It's good to know that there are still friends in the camp. Have this one on the house?" Pooley sank it at a single draught and strolled back to his seated companion. "I saw that," said O'Malley. "What have you just talked me into?" "Nothing much," said Jim nonchalantly. "It's just that Neville would prefer it if you break the space machine now rather than later." O'Malley controlled himself quite remarkably. "But I was of the impression the thing was indestructible. Do you not feel that this small point might put me at a slight disadvantage?" Pooley nudged his companion jovially in the rib area. "Come now," he said. "This should provide a little light relief. Take your mind off your worries. What is it that you lads from the old country say? Do it for the crack. That's it, isn't it? The crack, eh?" "The crack?" O'Malley shook his head in wonder, as if things weren't bad enough. He scratched at the stubble of his chin, which, through the day, had grown into what the Navy referred to as a full set, and cast a thoughtful eye towards the video machine. "I have an idea," he said, rising from his seat. "Perhaps a success here might turn the tide of our fortunes. Give me a florin." Pooley began to pat his pockets. "Give me "The florin," O'Malley said once more. Pooley peered up. "Now come on, Jim," said the Irishman, "and we will test the substance of this rogue apparatus." Neville, the part-time barman, watched the silver coin change hands and offered up a silent prayer to the dark and pagan deity of his personal preferences. Nicholas, Roger, Raffles, Rathbone had a pile of not dissimilar coins of the realms stacked upon the chromium roof of the gaze machine. He was set in for the night. "Stand aside, sonny," said O'Malley in an authoritative tone. "My friend here wishes to mash wits with these extraterrestrial lads." "No way," said Nick, turning not a verdant hair. "I'm halfway through a game here." O'Malley leant down towards the youth and spoke a few words into a pointed, tattooed ear. The scourge of the cosmic commando stepped aside. "Be my guest," he said politely. "I will explain how it works." "That would not be necessary. Thank you. Off you go then, Jim." Pooley shook his head vigorously. "Not me," he said. "These things give out dangerous x-rays. Not having my hair fall out and my fingernails drop off. No, thank you." O'Malley patted his companion on the shoulder. "Jim," said he, "who was it set fire to my pop-up toaster?" Pooley could not see the connection, but he nodded guiltily. "It was me," he said. "And who overwound my alarm clock?" "Also me." "And who fiddled with the tune on the wireless set, which had given me good and trouble-free listening for 20 years? Pooley looked away. "Also me," he said in a whisper. "And who borrowed my electric razor and—" "I didn't know you weren't supposed to use soap when shaving electric," Pooley complained. "Who was it?" "Also me." "Then you will understand my reasoning. That if there is one man capable of ruining, whether through chance, method or design, any piece of electrical apparatus with only the minimum of tampering, then that person is you, James Pooley." Jim pushed in the florin and the video screen burst into colour. "Lift off," he said. "You have to use a frost beaster to get optimum lift," said Raffles Rathbone, prancing on his toes and pointing variously at the throbbing machine. "Gauge the inclination of the sources. If you count to 3 and fire just in front of them, you can bring them down. Every third one is worth an extra 100 points. Keep to the right and they can't—" His voice trailed off as O'Malley dealt him a severe blow to the skull. "Silence," he said. "Jim knows what he's doing." "I don't," wailed Jim, wildly pressing buttons and juggling the joystick. "You're not here to win, Jim, only to break it." "Break it?" Raffles Rathbone renewed his frenzied dance. "Break the machine? Oh, barman, there is sabotage going on here. Do something. Neville smiled benevolently at the dancing youth. "There is nothing I can do," he said. "All the patrons have a right to play the machine. Don't be so selfish." "Selfish? This is a conspiracy. I shall phone the brewery." John O'Malley, a man to whom the word tolerance meant about as much as the rules of backgammon, snatched up the squirming malcontent by his badge-covered lapels and held him high at arm's length. "We don't want to go threatening the management now, do we?" he asked. "Oh, I got one," said Pooley suddenly. "Blew him right out of the sky, and there goes another, bit too. There's an act to it, you see." O'Malley let the dangling lad fall from his grasp. "Any sign of damage yet?" he asked. "I'm damaging their invasion fleet. Look, that is 100 points. Got the mothership. You score double for that." O'Malley looked on in wonder. "Come now, Jim," he implored. "Try harder. Apply a little more force." I am. There. Took one straight out. You duck away to the side. Then they can't get you there. "That's it," said the fallen Raffles Rathbone. "Count 5 from the last of the circus, and the scout ship comes straight down, and you can get 500 for him." A look of dire perplexity appeared on John O'Malley's ruddy face. "Jim," he said earnestly. "What's happening here, Jim?" "Nice one," said Raffles Rathbone. "When you get up to 1,000 points, you get an extra man. There, you got it." "No sweat," said Jim Pooley. O'Malley turned away from the machine and stalked over to the bar. Neville met his approach with a face like thunder. "What's all this?" the part-time barman demanded. "Treachery, is it?" O'Malley shook his head ferociously. His honour was at stake here. "Psychology," he informed Neville. "Oh, psychology, is it? Oh, silly old me. I could have sworn that he was enjoying himself." O'Malley smiled a sickly smile and tapped his nose. "Leave it to Jim," he counselled. "He knows what he's doing. Wins over the machine's confidence, probes its defences, finds a weak spot, and bitow. Said Neville, giving the Irishman what is universally known as the old fish-eye. "Bitow it'll better be." O'Malley grinned unconvincingly and ordered another pint. "Whoop! What?" "Aha!" yelled Raffles Rathbone. "Forgot to tell you about their strike ships. Ha ha! They got you that time. Care for a game of doubles?" "Certainly," said Jim. "Last to 10,000 gets a beer in." "You're on," said the lad. O'Malley hid his head in his hands and groaned. At 10:30 Neville called time, just to see what might happen. As ever, the response was minimal. A few lingering tourists, up to enjoy the tours round the derelict gasworks, upped and had it away in search of their coaches, which had left an hour before. But by the local colour the cry was unheeded as ever. John O'Malley, whose face was now contorted into an expression which would have put the wind up Rondo Hatton, sat upon his bar stool, sipping at the 4th pint of large he had been forced into buying himself during the course of the evening. Jim Pooley had spent the last 4 solid hours locked in mortal combat with the ever-alert invaders from the outer limits of the cosmic infinite. For his part, young Nick had never been happier. He had borne the old slings and arrows of outrageous fortune regarding his involvement with the videotic projection of the alien strike force for a goodly while. To be teamed up now with Jim Pooley, a man he had for long admired, gave him a definite feeling of invincibility. Together they would score maximum high points and get the mystery bonus. "Get that man," he yelled, dancing like a demented dervish. "Give that lad some stick. Oh, nice one." Pooley paused at long last to take breath. His neutron bomb release finger had the cramp, and he was beginning to suffer withdrawal symptoms from his self-imposed spell of drinklessness. "I must rest now," he told Rathbone. "I heard our good barman calling for the towers up, and the habits of a lifetime cannot be set aside in a single evening. I am called to the bar." "You're a mean player," said the boy admiringly. "It's been a pleasure to do battle with you." "You have the edge by virtue of practice," replied Jim, "but I'll give you a run for your money tomorrow lunchtime." "You're on," said Raffles Rathbone. When Jim found his way to the bar counter, he was somewhat astonished by the full extent of O'Malley's hostility. "What in the name of all saints, including even those who have recently been given the big E by the present papacy, do you think you are up to?" the Irishman asked. Pooley was unrepentant. "Psychology?" he suggested. "Psychology? Yes. You know, win over the machine's confidence, probe its defences, find the weak spot and then pit out. Who's rounded it?" "Yours," said O'Malley. "Irrefutably yours." "I got 15,201, said Jim proudly. "Personal high score. Takes a bit of beating, that." "Your head likewise." "It's in the wrist action," Pooley continued informatively, "and you have to know the sequences. Once you know the sequences, you can go for the higher scoring ships and simply dodge the lower ones. It's simple enough once you've sussed it out." "You're mad," said O'Malley. "You're right about the x-rays. They burned out your brain box." "Wrist action," said Pooley, drumming his killing finger onto the bar. 1, 2, 3, patel. Move to the left, patel, patel, patel. "Oh, he will kill you." "Tell you what," said Jim, "I'll give you a game of doubles tomorrow. Nick will be here, and he can give you a few pointers. You'll soon pick it up. Last 1 to 2,000 points gets the drinks in. What'd you say?" O'Malley buried his face in his hands and began to sob plaintively. Pooley finished the Irishman's pint for him. "You couldn't spare a couple of 2 bobs, could you, John?" he asked. "I just thought I'd get another game in before we go."